We're joined now by Mannie Jackson. Mr. Jackson, thank you very much for your time. We're very fortunate and happy to have you here with us. I want to begin by starting with your beginnings. Born in a railroad boxcar. We know that your mom was a cleaner of a lot of homes at the time. Your father worked multiple jobs, and all of this while your family was also dealing with the racism issue in our country at the time. What did you learn from your parents in those earliest days that let you know what could be possible for you in the future?
What I'm going to tell you is strange. What I learned is to keep my mouth shut and work hard, and essentially be invisible, which it surprised me that happened, but I had an experience. I went to my dad's work one time, and he wasn't the guy that he was around the house. He was talking out loud. He was saying things. He was engaging, and people liked him. I thought, this is a different guy than I see around, other places. So I read an article recently about play acting. I began to play act like my dad, because when he was away from the house and around where he had to be a black dude, he was something else. So I began play acting where I saw my dad play acting. So that's what I learned from those days. Very poor conditions we had, and we just existed what we did.
Yeah. How were you able to go from those humble beginnings to what you've risen to throughout your life? What does that take?
Honestly, just keep my mouth shut, paying attention. And I had a photographic memory I realized at the time, but I almost said regrettably, but fortunately the game of basketball came to my life. And suddenly I realized that there were some people who cared about me other than my mom and dad and my grandmother and uncles and that. When I realized through sports, I had a chance to engage other people, I'll say responsibly. And that made a difference. And I leveraged the sports ability I had, discovered I had, to engage a lot of people I wouldn't have engaged before and to feel appreciated. That meant a lot. It meant a lot.
What can you tell me about what life was like growing up in Illinois, in Southern Illinois, playing high school basketball at a time when the schools themselves had just been desegregated? What can you tell me about what that experience was like for you?
I wrote a book on this subject, so you can't do it in 30 seconds, but I can tell you two things that impacted me that one that makes me almost cry, sad, and the other makes me laugh when I think about it. I'll give you the sad one first. Back in I think it was 54 or 55, Emmett Till, a Chicago kid, was in Mississippi. And his death and how he was beaten and thrown in the river never left my consciousness all the time. No one could explain it to me. I didn't understand it, but I knew one thing. That happened to him because of his color. And he didn't keep his mouth shut. He got out of line. I heard all kinds of stories. It always bothered me. So that was in the back of my mind. That was the prism which I saw life through the Emmett Till story. The second thing that happened was basketball. And being able to play the game in a way that I discovered I had a 43-inch vertical jump when I was young and was dunking a basketball when I was 12 years old. I finally had what I didn't get at home or didn't get anyplace else, was kind of respect and people being curious about me. Those two things made a difference. And I mentioned a third one I had to. I learned early that when the sign said open to the public, it didn't mean me. And I was always being reminded, don't play around with that. And I always wonder, why'd they put a sign that says open to the public and we're not there? But those are the things you go through as an 8, 9, 10-year-old kid when you remember things, you think about things, you see stuff and you want to analyze things. I couldn't add all that up. And playing basketball and going to the University of Illinois later, and through high school I got it too, I realized that life is a complex, multi-dimensional situation. And you got to deal with each of the dimensions somewhat differently to survive. Helped a lot to understand that.
How often do you take some of those dimensions that you had as a youngster? How often do you think about them? How often does the Emmett Till story still resonate with you today? Your experiences playing high school basketball still resonate to you today?
For me, it's survival. It's an algorithm that I use in everything I get into, whether I'm selling. When I was executive with Honeywell, I realized when I went down south, I took my staff with me, and no one would accept that I was a lead executive. But instead of raising hell and getting all out of the box with it, I stepped back and let events unfold. When I go places, I think about the open to the public. I always ask one check first, if that public included me. Further, when I was doing something academically, I made sure that I had the right relationships with the right people. And I spent a lot of time. I have this, this thing about wanting to be liked. And I never could figure out why athletes, entertainers, some artists didn't work harder at being liked. Because for me, that was a requirement. I wanted to be liked. I didn't want to hurt anybody. I didn't want to involve myself in anything. I wanted to be liked. And I learned that from my grandmother and father. Those people were likable. They cared about others. And they were unconditionally engaged with people around them. When I say unconditionally, they didn't expect anything back from it. And those are the best lessons I could have gotten.
Yeah, that also goes with what you saw from your father as well, I would imagine.
Yes. I think when I put the Humanities Center together in my hometown, people asking why I did it, and I said, it's natural. I don't know anything else to do. And they said, well, when you get to be wealthy, you're supposed to be this. I said, well, as far as I'm concerned, I'm doing more of the stuff that I wanted to do. I just saw my dad and grandfather doing, what I learned at home. And so it's all natural. And I became engaged at the University of Illinois because I saw a way to give back to students there. And the students that I saw there looked a lot like me as they run around the campus, not knowing where they were and what they were doing. I wanted to give them some basis of survival, a reason to survive, a reason to have hope, and to be able to look to their left and right and see people who cared about them. And that's what I got in basketball. You look at the basketball court, do you make it when you can look to your left and right, people on both sides care about you. And I wanted to have that for students. Now I see that in sports teams that I have. I want them to feel like someone cares about them. There's hope for that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about your time at Illinois. When you first get there, along with Governor Vaughn, you two being the first two Black basketball players at Illinois, how did it help having him next to you, going through that experience in what was a time that is so different from what we see today?
Yeah, it meant everything. We were the two. There was only two of us. And I say that, but 27,000 students, there are only two of us on campus that cared about each other. So the goal was to make sure that I looked out for him, he looked out for me, and we were seeking people that we care about. And on our team, the most miraculous thing I can remember look back on today is to say, it's hard to imagine that being on a basketball team of a bunch of young people from Illinois that didn't seem to have a lot of prejudice. Because when you got in the gymnasium, all the bullshit disappeared. And we didn't expect them to socialize with us. We didn't expect them to give us anything. But for some reason, working hard and being good at what we were doing carried the day. And so we had some wonderful gentlemen on our basketball team. I mean, these are great young people that just went along, got along, worked out well.
I know while you guys were playing at Illinois, I believe it was the 1958-59 season, you go down to Kentucky, played actually in Louisville, Kentucky, but played the Kentucky Wildcats, who were number one at the time, and took them to the brink, had a chance, almost beat the number one team in the country. What do you remember about that game and that entire experience?
Well, two things happened. Went to Louisville, and we went looking for Cassius Clay at the time. We couldn't find him. We ran into one of his buddies and went to a bar there and met some people, and we were running late. So we came back, and our teammates were all going to the movies. And so a group, like maybe 9 or 10 of us, were going to a movie. And we get to the counter, and the lady selling tickets said, "We can take you folks, and we can't take those two." And without pointing or saying, we knew exactly what they meant. And I saw my teammates, which I'll never forget this as long as I live, they went off. And what we did was try to corral the teammates from going crazy. Got to treat our guys like that. And we left there as a team. We didn't go to them, but we left there as a team, which is really, it touches me the day to think about it. And I could tell you the names of some of these people. They're really great human beings today, doing guys like Jerry Colangelo, some people like that. Just amazing people. But I remember getting to the game, and we were supposed to play Kentucky in Lexington, but they had not had an integrated game in Lexington yet. So we played in Louisville. And getting that game, all the students that came from Kentucky were saying what they wanted to say. And we heard all the words you'd think you'd want to hear. And their band struck up Bye Bye Blackbird when I fouled out of the game. I fouled out in the first minute of the second half, and I'd scored like 16 points the first half or something, a lot of points. And God was left in the game to take over. And I mean, he took over, my buddy. And I think the fans were shocked to see how controlled we were and how good he was and how much everything they said when they booed him or something, I was on the court going crazy for him. And we just had a good feeling about things. Our teammates again rose to the occasion as if nothing happened. We were in a cocoon, just the Illinois basketball team, Governor Vaughn and Mannie Jackson, doing our thing while the fans were kind of in awe of these two black strangers behaving like they were on the playground. We were within one basket, one shot of beating the number one team in the nation. We had the last shot at it. So it was a good experience now to look back on in life because we learned something about how to get along, how to make things happen. And we also learned that it's possible to love people that you don't think you should be loving, but we fell in love with our teammates. We fell in love with that.
It's a really good lesson. Actually, the arena that you all played in, I know that was the first place that Cassius Clay, before he became Muhammad Ali, that was the first place that he actually boxed in Louisville. So that's a little history lesson for you right there as well. I just want to ask you a couple more questions more about your post-Illinois days. First of all, when you played for the Harlem Globetrotters, what's one memory, what's one takeaway that resonates with you today about that time?
The curiosity that young people had about America. And the first tour I made with them was out of the country. And we started out in Italy and then moved through the UK and across pan-European countries and went behind the Iron Curtain. We got behind the Iron Curtain and one of the promoters saw that I could play and asked if I would consider moving to Russia to play basketball. I remember I had the opportunity then to say, yeah, well, maybe because it was kind of nice to have someone want you and want to pay you for doing it. And yeah. We didn't do it, but I remember going from there to Poland and Romania at the time and meeting other students and finding myself lecturing or debating the merits of democracy and capitalism. And here I knew that Bull Connors and that crap that was going on down in the South was just devastating to black folks. But I found myself falling in love with America because I told the story about how at least I had a chance. I was going to a great university. I had a chance to travel the world. And while my skin was black, I could talk about where I came from and where my parents came from. My great-grandfather was a slave. And here I was playing at the University of Illinois with the hopes of being a business executive one day. And I'd tell these young people that, and their jaw would drop. How can you say that with all this going on in your country? And I'd listen to myself talk, and I'd think, I've become an advocate, promoter of America, which is the most racist and nastiest country to me and my family you can imagine. But I saw I had the potential to play act again to even do good things with a bad situation. And that kind of carried my life in business, sports, and beyond, and getting along to make good things come from bad situations. And I think when I got back from Europe, I would say probably half a dozen of those students I met back in those days contacted me in Chicago and different places to say, we were in Poland, we were in Warsaw, we saw you in Bucharest when you came through. We were in that group that you were talking to. And I thought, those kids, I made a difference in their life. So I remember those kind of things, aside from the fact we had a really good basketball team. We were really good. We were really good.
You talk about taking things from a bad situation and making them better, making them good. I'm thinking about when you took over as the lead executive of the Globetrotters. How were you all able to turn things back around for the team at that time?
Well, I'd already put 20 years into Honeywell.
Yeah.
I'd essentially retired. I'd had a good job with that company. I think I was the 8th or 9th highest paid person in the company. I had executive vice president, had global experience, that kind of stuff. But I always wanted to do something different. And what I did with the Globetrotters, I assumed that the team could be bought and I'd have a chance to revive the image and the story of the team the way it should have been revised. Because by the time the league decided to integrate, the Globetrotters were positioned as black clowns. And a lot of people, in some cases, including myself, were kind of ashamed of what they represented. They didn't have the kind of dignity I thought that the team deserved. And I thought, maybe if I could spend 2 years, I've got money now, I've worked, I was 50 years old at the time. I've worked, I can buy this team, I can do a movie, I can get merchandise out, I can get the story told, I get a book written, I can be an ambassador for the Globetrotters across this country to remind black and white kids how great this organization was and how nasty discrimination was. And I could carry that over to science and medicine and other places and say, you can't leave people out of the equation because of their color, because of their gender. So I thought if I could get that done, it'd be really interesting to use the Globetrotters to do that. And also I thought the ambassadorial part of traveling the world would be interesting. But we were in bankruptcy, there was no money. So I had some cash and I brought out of bankruptcy and the bank gave me, I told the bank the story, National Westminster Bank out of London. And they said, you have that kind of ambition that you want to do that? I said, yes, I want to do that. So they said, we'll give you the team. So they eventually gave it to me for $500,000. And I took a couple of people with me and I said, I want to now put some money in the bank and I want to act as if I'm on a mission not to get wealthy or become famous for this team, but to change the behavior of people in the way they see this once black organization, and also to say how ridiculous it was to discriminate against people because of their color when all the talent that they possibly had. And I used the example of how many doctors are sitting in the ghetto someplace. How many great engineers have never gotten out of the projects. And I think about discriminating against the Harlem Globetrotters, the players who now have become in the NBA stellar. We make up, easily half plus of the population of NBA players, 450 players. And the foreign players make up some 25%, but it was an all white league and it was good. But how much better it became when they did it on merit. And I think about that all the time. That's a lesson I gave to the people around the world that you can't believe we just started to play basketball when they decided to desegregate the league. And I got great pride in using the Globetrotters as that model of an example of they're great folks of all backgrounds. I don't have a racial objective. I have humanities objectives. We got to take care of people because they're people. And I carried that message carried around the world and people came out to see us. And my last dream, by the way, was to have an international touring barnstorming league. And in 2005, when the Argentine team beat the US team, we challenged them to a mythical world championship with the notion that the team that won would be the world champions. And we'd have teams all over the world, as soccer does frequently. They play out of their countries playing, and you get teams from Africa, teams from Asia, Middle East, touring and playing against each other. Because basketball is probably the best way to communicate to people I found. The intimacy of basketball is like few things that I've seen, whether it's on an outside court or in a major arena. I dreamed of doing that. I wanted to do that. Anyway, I got halfway there and stopped.
Oh, man. that would have been really cool to see. I wish you guys could have seen that all the way through.
I'll give you one thing that would really shock you. The Argentine team agreed to do it.
Uh-huh.
Really amazing to see those guys wanting to do it with us. And we had games scheduled in New York, Las Vegas, and Miami. And we had a streaming service. A friend of mine knew how to stream this thing. And we had planned to stream it around the world. And it would have netted about $100 million in those days, 2006 or so. We were going to net $100 million. And you know what? I just hit a wall. I ran out of gas. I just freaking ran out of gas. And I realized if I didn't push hard and carry it, it wouldn't go. And I had a chance to sell the team to Roy Disney, who had the same kind of dream about doing good things with it. And I thought I could get involved with Disney and see them doing some good things. He realized his dream of doing some good things, and together we could make some nice things happen with that team. And of course, he passed away, and I decided time was valuable.
Mannie Jackson, this has been awesome. I could talk to you for hours. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.